Welcome back to another episode of the Canon on the Boom Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today doing a review of Deadpool and Wolverine, the very long anticipated movie. I saw it yesterday. I wanted to do the whole review yesterday, but ended up being busy with some stuff. So I'm gonna get into it now. Usually, if you're new to this, usually the first time I'll do an initial reaction, which is shorter, and then I'll see it again and go do a fuller, deeper one. I'm not sure when I'm gonna go see this again. I have a good feeling and thoughts about what I feel about this movie, so I felt like I'm gonna just knock it out here, but I might come back later. I don't know. So that's that, and it's spoiler, so I probably won't go into this. Nah, it's gonna be spoiler. I don't want to limit myself. I don't do non-spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, definitely hold off to listening to this. But I am going to go backwards a little bit and start off with my kind of overall thoughts on the movie and then break down the rest. So overall, I left this movie feeling like this is a movie that was made for the first experience, and you get a number of those. We had them in the MCU, for the most part MCU, but other times as well, where we know there's a lot of cameos, a lot of surprises, and so it's a first time experience. Now that doesn't mean when you see it again it won't be exciting, but it definitely won't be like the first time. So with that being said though, I left the movie feeling like this is a movie I immediately want to see certain parts again, but I don't necessarily want to sit through the whole movie again. Now, there are some movies that I've watched where it's like, yes, I immediately want to see that again, or yeah, I'll wait till that's on streaming, or maybe I'll never watch that again. There are some movies where it's like, man, certain parts were so good, I'm willing to come back, sit through the movie just to see the parts I love again. And then there's movies like this where I want to see the parts I love. I want to see some other parts because I didn't catch everything, but I don't know that I want to sit through this whole movie again just for it. And it's barely over 2 hours, so it's not even super long, but it felt long. But I've noticed that always feels like that the first time because you are taking in so much information. Second viewing usually goes by quicker, and I just, the times are different. I don't go to the movies as much. A lot of people don't. We got streaming, but also for me, it's just time. It's hard to justify blocking out that much time to go watch a movie. So for me, I just left feeling like, yeah, immediately I wish I could go home and put on these favorite parts, but you can't, and obviously that's the way it works. So I'm in the middle. If I do go see it again, it'll be about probably once, and it definitely probably won't be like this weekend. I might wait for like a random weekday to go see it, maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday, something like that. Monday, we'll see. If I get some open time on the schedule, then I'll go see it again. So that's how I left feeling, because the movie is not perfect, it's not great. It is special though. I will say it's special because I'm not a fan of the Deadpools. If you're new, I've reviewed those. The first Deadpool I thought was solid. I'd probably say like a B minus, and then the second one I just really didn't like. I didn't like that. I thought that was a weak movie. So this one, I wasn't super excited for another Deadpool, but I know a lot of people love it, and then when they announced Wolverine, and it was just like, okay, whatever. But the more we went on, it was clear from everybody involved that they were trying to do something special, something big, not just another movie. And so I had excitement for it, definitely, as far as the way they said it's going to change the MCU and all that. To jump ahead, it did not change the MCU at all, so we'll get to that though. But this movie, for me, I just don't like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool that much. Like, definitely not the way everybody else does. People always say he's born to play Deadpool. I don't believe that. Like, there's a bunch of different iterations of Deadpool in comics and everything else, but for me, the one that I knew, and it's not like I was an expert, but the Deadpool that I knew and how I knew him, He's not like this. This is Ryan Reynolds in a costume. And it's not that I dislike Ryan Reynolds, but he's just playing Ryan Reynolds. And to be honest, a whole movie of it gets annoying. And so what I thought worked really well in this movie is having that counterbalance with Hugh Jackman. Well, what I would say is Wolverine was Wolverine is the star of this movie, but Hugh Jackman is the MVP for real, because it's not only having the character of Logan and Wolverine be there to be a different attitude and to, you know, counteract Deadpool, but it was also Hugh Jackman, his acting ability that elevated this so high. And that's why I said it's a special movie, because it's some things in here that I really think are weak, but what Hugh does and some of the things they do in the movie, it just pushes it past the weaknesses and makes it still enjoyable. So anyway, that's kind of how I felt, you know, going into it, and coming out, I was like, the fact that they were able to bring in all these other people, and I know they had Cyclops and Negasonic Teenage Warhead in the first one, and then they did a little more in the second one, but they really, I wouldn't say ensemble cast, but they really built out the not the whole MCU, but at least part of the MCU around him, and that helped this movie so much. It was not just another 2 hours of Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool. It's a lot of that in it, but it has so much more in it, and so much of the other worlds that we know, that it made it exciting and made it more tolerable for me. So that's how I came out feeling, and I think that was the big boost to this movie. And so yeah, so overall I probably like I said, I might see it again, but I'll probably give it a solid B. So as far as some of the things that didn't work for me, the story was weak. I bounced back and forth between it and the movie, because I was trying to remember certain rules and things like that. But what it comes down to is time, time travel. That's always just going to open up plot holes. So after thinking about it for a night, I'm like, because in the movie, I'm like, I'm pretty sure the TVA could just go back and make it where Logan doesn't die. And on top of that, to say you have an anchor being, and if they die, the timeline dies, that doesn't make sense. People gonna die. Even if it's Wolverine, who has regeneration and lives for a long time, people are going to die. Like, so one person dies and the whole timeline dies. That was new, and now that I think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. That's just put there to add the stakes for Deadpool, and it doesn't fit with what we know about the MCU's rules. On top of that, so yeah, they could have went back, made sure Logan didn't die, and then that the whole movie doesn't happen. On top of that, when they were saying we don't know that they can fix what happened to our like the new Logan's timeline, why can't they? They could just, because they use the TVA stuff like a timeline jumper, which it is, but is mainly a time jumper. You can go to different points in time. We saw that. Like, they even mentioned, of course, Loki season, 1, whatever. And so we know they're using the exact same TVA. We got I forgot the lady's number, but we got her B something. Like, we know this is the Loki TVA that we know. They can't go back in time and change things. We've seen it happen. And not to mention, Loki is now in charge of the timeline. Where was he at? And then on top of that, the villain, the secondary villain, came up with a time ripper to destroy a timeline because he felt the TVA wasn't efficient. The TVA literally was just what's the word they would call it? Pruning timelines instantly. And I know they had the dialogue where it was like, they don't do that anymore. Okay, so what? Like, what you're doing is still not different. It's just a lot more work. Like, all you had to do was find some of that technology that they used to use to prune timelines and then do that. But either way, you breaking the rules, so it does, like, that made no sense. I'm going to show them my machine works and they're going to see that it's faster. What they did before was even faster than that. And so I don't, the point of them not doing it is not to be efficient. So none of that made sense. Like, none of that made sense. Like, again, and even Deadpool said they added MacGuffin, so it was weak writing. But the most disappointing part was with Wolverine, where they stretch out all movie to tell us what happened to him, and Deadpool points it out too, which makes it more of a slap in the face when we finally get it, that it was such a weak story. Like, you could have wrote anything. This is a random timeline. This, you knew you weren't getting the X-Men back. You knew you weren't going to do an actual flashback. So you could have wrote anything. You could have wrote something tragic. This man said he went to the bar and the humans came and killed the X-Men. And that's part of me in that moment. I was like, I got to rewatch this because I can't be hearing this correctly. But then he literally repeated it later for no reason. But they said that, excuse me, they said that the humans killed the X-Men because he went to a bar and got drunk. I don't even understand what that means. So they kept saying he destroyed his world. He didn't destroy his world. He didn't destroy his universe at all. Like, the X-Men died. When we meet him, the universe is living, thriving. It's just that the X-Men died. And then he went on a killing spree and became a pariah. That I get. More than likely, he probably would have been locked up forever after that. But still, I get that. That part I could get. But just overall, the way they set it up and they gave such a weak story that didn't even make sense, that was disappointing. That was disappointing. So the writing was not that good. Yeah, that's that. I know people love the fourth wall breaking, and it's too much for me, especially for a third movie. Like, we've seen it so much. It's too much because it undercuts a lot of moments of tension and drama and all that, when it's just hard to do that. Like, when you're being a pure comedy, it works. But when you're trying to have like moments of like seriousness and stakes and all that, but you've been cracking jokes the whole time about sequels and Wolverine being here till he's 90 and all these things you're gonna do in the future, and you know, breaking the fourth wall, like there are no stakes. There's no real moments of like, oh, this is sad, because I'm not immersed into the story. You're talking about it as if it's a movie that we're watching, which of course breaks the fourth wall, and now it just undercuts a lot of stuff. So and again, like I said, the Ryan Reynolds version of Deadpool is not my favorite, so that stuff already kind of annoys me. But in this movie, I thought particularly it kind of undercut some moments. But yeah, those were my big negatives. Positives, there's a lot of positives, man. The reason I say this was special is because Hugh Jackman, despite the weak writing and all that, he lifts this movie completely up. I wouldn't say by himself, but darn near. Like I said, it ain't too many movies that I've seen in my adult life where it had bad writing and was able to overcome it. I don't see too many of that. But Hugh Jackman, his acting in those moments, what it made me feel like is if somebody you know is sad and they're telling you why they're sad, and you think it's a dumb reason, but you can see that it's truly bothering and upsetting them. That's kind of how I felt about it, where it's like, look, this might not make sense to me, or it might not be worthy of being sad over it, but what matters is Hugh Jackman as an actor is showing us he's sad and he's messed up over it, and so now I feel bad for him. And so when he wanted to act, he was acting. And that's just something you don't have in these Deadpool movies. So that caliber of acting was off the charts. And like I said, just everything he brought to counteract everything Deadpool was doing made it a nice, tolerable blend. So that was great. The music was great. And I know they had salt and pepper in the first one. I can't remember for real. I really can't remember, but I think like or not classic, but popular songs is a Deadpool thing. I'm not sure, but it was definitely on display in this one, and I thought the choices they made and just the way they swelled up the moments were done really well. Especially the emotional moments, like, and it's funny because there's a lot of times people critique a movie for being intentionally manipulative, where it's like they're building up this music, building up the moment, they're trying to make you feel something with the music. But this, I thought, was very intentional and in your face, but it worked still. It worked, whether it was the fighting scenes, whether it was the last scene where they were trying to make the sacrifice. The music just worked really well throughout the whole movie. Of course, the opening scene, it really, I don't know, it got me pumped up, so it was nice. I think like even a movie like Guardians that has the music is a big part of it, I don't even think they use the music as well as this Deadpool did. The fighting, speaking of, was, I would say, mostly well choreographed. There's some parts where it was just kind of whatever, but a lot of the fights, the wire work, the stunt work, all that was done well. There's a couple times where the CGI is a little wonky, but for the most part, all the fights, man, they were good. They were really good. So we love that. And then, like, I know a lot of people are going to give it an A+ just because of the cameos. I thought the cameos was cool. I like how they were being very meta with the idea of being tossed away into the garbage bin and kind of, you know, as a farewell. Now, it didn't strike that way to me as a farewell, because like, even though in the movie they were saying it was like, okay, cool, but at the end when they show like the you know, best time of our, or whatever it's called, that song, and then they show the montage of the behind the scenes, I was like, this didn't feel like a farewell because everybody wasn't here. Like, I feel like if you were going for that angle, you had to do your best to bring everybody back, and so it didn't feel like a farewell. But you know, whatever, they did what they did. So you, Elektra, I don't care about. Like, I've never heard Elektra as a fan favorite. I know I really don't care about Elektra in general, especially Jennifer Garner's Elektra. But so she felt weird, to be honest. Like, it was like, oh, Channing Tatum as Gambit finally. You know, he's friends with Ryan Reynolds. We know he wants to be Gambit. Blah, blah, blah. Blade, oh my God, Wesley's back. That's crazy. And then Elektra, okay. And then X-23. So I like the way they were meta with it, and obviously the reveals. I knew about Elektra, but I didn't know about the other ones, so that shocked. And then they showed us X-23 in the trailer, so those two reveals shocked me. Oh, of course, Chris Evans as I thought that joke was funny. I didn't think I would like it. One thing I was worried about is they were going to do a Deadpool 2. Like, every time somebody shows up, they immediately die, just to be like, hey, we're here, and that was going to make me mad. But they did actually use them as characters and part of the plot, and like I said, they wrapped it together and made it meta. It's like, hey, we all got thrown away over here by the bosses, of course, which is Disney and all that. So I like the way they utilized the cameos, where it wasn't just useless. Like, they actually played a part. They got cool moments to fight and like all that. Also, like at the end, how X-23 is there and she's alive. And it didn't say that anybody died, but X-23's there, but you know, we couldn't bring Blade and them to that, but whatever. So that was cool, man. That was cool. I like the way they utilized it. Well, I'm not over the moon about it like everybody else, but it was pretty funny. Yeah, I think that's it, man. I think that's it. That's the big positives. It was a fun movie. The story didn't make sense. It doesn't fit. And to be honest, they've vastly overhyped the changes it does to the MCU. What change did it do? What change happened? He saved his timeline, which is supposedly the Fox timeline, still intact. That Wolverine leaves, goes back to his timeline. He ain't in the MCU. He ain't in Fox. Deadpool not even in the MCU. And I'm not saying he's not going to show up in all these other things, but it didn't change the MCU at all. It literally did nothing. The TVA is still the TVA, even though they didn't show Loki, and none of the rules have changed. So it's still the same thing. And I'm a little mad that they make a joke about Jonathan Majors. Like, I thought he was gonna go there. He went everywhere else with this R-rated movie, so I thought he was gonna go there. But yeah. I'm a little bummed that it really had no impact because they kept saying it was gonna change the MCU. But I would put this above No Way Home and right below Civil War, and that's the class I put it in because it was very much a fan fan service movie. It was a fan service movie through and through. No Way Home, the story was weak. It was super stupid, and the plot holes and logic just didn't make no sense. And the cameos were great, but it was so much like the whole movie was like, haha, look what we got. Civil War, the plot holes weren't as bad as these two movies, although some of them were pretty bad, but it didn't unravel the whole movie for me. And it has Black Panther, who was amazing in that. So that movie holds up and it's solid. It's good stuff. Like, all three movies are good stuff, but I can't rate them high because the writing was real. Woo! A lot of plot holes. So I would put this movie in between that, but that's the class I put it in, this fan service class. So that's it for me. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, if you heard it here, it's official canon.